My name is Claire, and for 6 years I believed my husband Ethan would always choose me. I was wrong. It happened during his family's annual summer gathering. Every July, Ethan's parents hosted a huge barbecue at their lake house. Around 30 relatives attended every year: parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone. I never truly fit in. Ethan's family came from old money. I didn't. I grew up with a single mother who worked 2 jobs. His mother, Victoria, never let me forget that. From the day Ethan introduced me, she made comments. Claire means well, but she wasn't raised the way we were. Or, poor dear, formal dinners must still feel strange for you. Ethan always told me to ignore her. That's just Mom, he'd say. For years I stayed quiet, mostly because of our son Noah. Noah was 3 years old, sweet, curious, and absolutely adored by everyone except Victoria, who constantly criticized my parenting. That afternoon started normally. Then Noah accidentally spilled juice on Victoria's antique dining chair. It wasn't even serious. A few drops. I immediately grabbed napkins, but Victoria exploded. "You've raised him without manners," she snapped. I apologized. Then she looked directly at Noah. "This is exactly why children need proper mothers." The entire patio went silent. I froze. No one had ever insulted me in front of my child before. I calmly asked her not to speak about me that way in front of Noah. Victoria laughed. "Oh, please, if you can't handle criticism, perhaps you shouldn't have become a mother." Something inside me finally broke. For the first time in 6 years, I answered back, and everything got worse. I stood up. "Victoria, I've tolerated your insults for years, but you don't get to speak to me or my son like that anymore." You could have heard a pin drop. Victoria looked shocked. Apparently, the quiet daughter-in-law wasn't supposed to have a voice. Then my sister-in-law, Jenna, jumped in. Mom was only trying to help. I shook my head. No, she was humiliating me. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion. Jenna defended Victoria. Ethan's aunt accused me of overreacting. His cousin muttered that I'd always been too sensitive. Within minutes, the entire family had turned against me. I looked at Ethan. Surely my husband would support me. Instead, he sighed heavily. "Claire, just apologize." I stared at him. "What?" "You're upsetting everyone," he said quietly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Your mother insulted me in front of our son." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "Please, not today." Victoria crossed her arms triumphantly. Then Ethan said the words that changed our marriage forever. "Apologize or pack your bags and leave." No one objected. No one defended me. Even worse, Noah had heard everything. My little boy was standing beside me, clutching my leg, tears filling his eyes. I looked around that table. Not one person cared that a 3-year-old was witnessing this. I simply nodded. "Okay." Then I picked up Noah, walked to our guest room, and quietly started packing. Nobody stopped me. Not Ethan. Not his parents. No one. They probably assumed I'd cool down and apologize like always. Instead, I packed 2 suitcases. Mine and Noah's. Then I opened a small lockbox hidden inside my luggage. Inside were passports, birth certificates, emergency savings documents, and the debit card connected to my private account. 3 years earlier, after yet another argument involving Victoria, my own mother had given me advice. Always keep an exit plan. I never thought I'd use it. Until now. By midnight, Noah was asleep. Ethan still hadn't come to check on us. Around 1 a.m., I booked 2 one-way tickets. Destination Portugal. Specifically Porto. Why Porto? Because my college best friend, Sophia, had moved there years earlier. She'd repeatedly invited me to visit, even offering her guest house if I ever needed a fresh start. I texted her. "Can Noah and I come?" She replied less than a minute later. "Stay as long as you need." At 5 a.m., while everyone in the house was sleeping, I carried Noah to the car. I left my wedding ring on Ethan's nightstand. Beside it, I placed a short note. "You told me to leave." So I did. 22 hours later, Noah and I landed in Portugal. By the time Ethan discovered we had left the country, it was already too late, and his reaction was nothing compared to what happened next. Noah and I arrived in Porto exhausted but safe. Sophia met us at the airport. The moment she saw me, she wrapped me in a hug. "You don't have to explain anything tonight," she said softly. "Just rest." For the first time in years, I felt safe. The next morning, I turned my phone on. I had 83 missed calls, 47 texts. Most were from Ethan. At first, they were angry. "Where are you? This isn't funny, Claire. Bring Noah home immediately." Then, several hours later, the messages changed. "Please answer. Mom didn't mean it. Noah must be scared. Finally, Claire, please, just tell me you're both okay. I sent one message. Noah and I are safe. We need time. Then I turned my phone off again. Over the next few weeks, life slowly changed. Sophia owned a successful language school. She offered me temporary work managing online student registrations. Noah started attending a small international preschool nearby. He loved it. For the first time, I noticed something strange. My son had stopped having nightmares. Back home, Noah often woke up crying after family gatherings. In Portugal, he slept peacefully. I tried not to think about what that meant. Then one afternoon, Noah said something that shattered me. I was putting Noah to bed when he quietly asked, "Mommy, is Grandma Victoria mad because I'm bad?" My heart stopped. I sat beside him. "Why would you think that, sweetheart?" He looked down at his blanket. "Grandma says I make messes and Daddy says you make Grandma angry." I couldn't breathe. "Did Grandma say other things to you?" Noah nodded. "She says boys need strong families, and sometimes Mommy makes things difficult." I felt sick. My 3-year-old had been carrying this. For how long? Suddenly so many things made sense. The anxiety before visits, the stomach aches, the nightmares. I immediately arranged an appointment with a child psychologist recommended by Sophia. After several sessions, the psychologist gently explained that Noah had become extremely anxious around conflict and criticism. She recommended maintaining distance from the family until Noah felt emotionally secure again. That same week Ethan called. I answered for the first time. "Claire, thank God." I remained silent. Then he said something unexpected. "Mom wants to speak with Noah." "No." "Claire, you're punishing everyone." "No, Ethan, I'm protecting our son." There was a long pause. Then he whispered, "Mom says you've poisoned Noah against us." I almost laughed. "No, Ethan, your family did that themselves." For the first time, Ethan had no response, but he still didn't understand. Not yet. That changed 1 month later. A month after arriving in Portugal, I received an email from Ethan. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't angry. It simply said, "Can we video call? I need to discuss something important." I agreed. When the call started, Ethan looked exhausted, much thinner. "Dad had a minor heart attack," he said quietly. I was genuinely shocked. His father, Richard, had always been healthy. "Is he okay?" "Yes, but the doctors say stress contributed." I nodded politely. Then Ethan surprised me. "Mom blames you." Of course she did, but Ethan didn't stop there. Actually, everyone blames everyone. Apparently, after Noah and I left, years of buried family tension had exploded. Jenna accused Victoria of controlling everyone. Richard admitted he was tired of constant conflict. Several relatives stopped attending family events altogether. The perfect family image had started falling apart. Then Ethan looked directly at me. "Claire, I started therapy." I said nothing. "I didn't understand before," he admitted, "but my therapist asked me a question." He swallowed hard. She asked why I expected my wife to tolerate behavior that I wouldn't accept from anyone else. For the first time since I'd known him, Ethan cried. "I failed you." I wanted to believe him, but trust isn't rebuilt with tears, especially after years of silence. Then Ethan said something else. "There's something about my mother that you don't know," and what he told me next changed everything. Ethan wiped his eyes, then he took a deep breath. "Last week Dad finally told me the truth." I frowned. "What truth?" Ethan looked away. "When I was 10, Mom found out Dad had an affair." I sat quietly. I had never heard this before. In order to save their marriage, they went to counseling. Dad ended the affair, but Mom never really recovered. I still didn't understand. Then Ethan continued. "The woman Dad had the affair with was a single mother." My stomach dropped. Suddenly everything clicked. Victoria's comments. The constant references to my upbringing, her obsession with proper families. Ethan nodded sadly. "According to Dad, Mom started associating single mothers with broken families. It wasn't logical, but she projected all of that anger onto you." I sat there in silence. Part of me felt sorry for Victoria. Another part was furious, because whatever pain she carried, she had chosen to pass it on to me and eventually to Noah. "Does she know you know?" I asked. Ethan shook his head. "No," I sighed. "Ethan, understanding why someone hurts you doesn't erase the damage." "I know," he whispered. Then he said something unexpected. "I moved out." I blinked. "What?" "I left my parents' house." Apparently, after starting therapy, Ethan had confronted Victoria about her treatment of me. The argument had been explosive. Victoria denied everything. Then she blamed me. Then she blamed Noah. That was the moment Ethan finally walked away. For the first time in his life, he had chosen a boundary, but I still wasn't ready to go back. Because there was something Ethan still didn't know, something I'd discovered just days earlier. And when I told him, he went completely pale. A week earlier, while organizing old paperwork, I had found something strange. 3 years ago, shortly after Noah was born, Victoria had insisted on helping us set up a college savings account for him. She claimed it was her gift. At the time, I thought it was generous. But after moving to Portugal, I decided to review all our finances. What I found shocked me. The account wasn't in Noah's name. It was a trust, controlled entirely by Victoria. Even worse, the legal documents included a clause. If Ethan and I divorced, Victoria would become co-trustee and gain significant control over how the money could be used. I had no memory of agreeing to this. I checked the signatures. Mine looked strange. Very strange. So I contacted the attorney whose name appeared on the paperwork. After reviewing everything, the attorney called me personally. "Mrs. Hayes, I believe your signature may have been forged." I felt sick. The attorney explained that the original documents submitted years earlier had been delivered exclusively by Victoria. No in-person verification had occurred. I immediately hired an independent forensic document examiner. 2 days later, the report arrived. The signature wasn't mine. It had been forged. I stared at the report for nearly an hour. Then I called Ethan. As soon as I explained what I'd discovered, he turned completely white. Because there was only one person who could have done it, and if it was true, everything was about to change. Ethan flew to Portugal 2 days later. It was the first time we had seen each other in nearly 3 months. Noah ran to hug him immediately. I won't lie, seeing them together hurt. Noah had missed his father terribly. After Noah went to bed, Ethan and I sat in Sophia's kitchen. I handed him the forensic report. He read every page. Twice. Then he quietly said, "I'm taking this to the police." I studied him carefully. "Are you sure?" Ethan nodded. "If Mom forged legal documents involving our son, this can't be ignored." When Ethan returned home, he confronted Victoria. At first, she denied everything. Then Ethan showed her the report. According to him, she immediately broke down and confessed. Years earlier, she'd become convinced that I would eventually leave Ethan. She claimed she had only wanted to protect the family money, so she forged my signature, without telling anyone, including Richard, including Ethan. The police investigation began shortly afterward. The news devastated the family. Richard moved into a separate apartment. Jenna stopped speaking to Victoria. Relatives who had defended her for years suddenly distanced themselves. For the first time, Victoria faced real consequences. But what happened next shocked everyone. Because instead of fighting the charges, Victoria sent me a letter. A handwritten letter. And inside was something none of us expected. 2 weeks after Ethan returned home, a large envelope arrived at Sophia's house. The sender's name made my stomach tighten. Victoria Hayes. For several minutes I simply stared at it. Part of me wanted to throw it away unopened. Instead, I carefully opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, and a small silver key. The letter was 8 pages long. Victoria admitted everything, not just the forged documents. Everything. She wrote about Richard's affair, her years of anger, her obsession with controlling her family, and how she had unfairly projected her pain onto me. But one paragraph stood out. "I spent years convincing myself I was protecting my son. The truth is I was protecting myself from being abandoned again." At the very end, she wrote, "The enclosed key belongs to storage unit 214. It contains things that belong to Noah. I hope someday you'll let him have them." I was suspicious. Very suspicious. I immediately called Ethan. Together, we agreed that he would check the storage unit first. 3 days later, Ethan called me. He sounded emotional. "Claire, you need to see this." The following week, Noah and I flew back to the US for the first time. Not to reconcile. Not yet. Simply to see what was inside. Neither of us expected what we would find. The storage facility sat on the edge of town. Ethan met us there. Noah was excited to see his father again. I remained cautious. When Ethan unlocked Unit 214, I froze. Inside were dozens of carefully labeled boxes, every single one related to Noah. Baby clothes, photographs, handmade toys, birthday cards, scrapbooks, even Noah's hospital bracelet from the day he was born. I looked at Ethan in confusion. "Why are these here?" Ethan looked embarrassed. "My mother kept everything." As we opened more boxes, the story became clear. Victoria had secretly documented nearly every milestone of Noah's life. There were journals, hundreds of pages. Many described her fears, her regrets, her guilt. One entry made me cry. Today Noah called Claire when he fell and scraped his knee. I realized he runs to her the way Ethan used to run to me. Instead of being happy, I felt jealous. Something is wrong with me. Another read. I think Claire is a wonderful mother. I don't know why admitting that feels like losing. I sat quietly. The journals didn't excuse her actions, but they revealed something important. Victoria had known for years that she was hurting us. She simply hadn't known how to stop. Then Noah found something. A small wooden box with his name carved into it. Inside was a letter addressed to him, written in Victoria's handwriting, and what it said changed everything. That night, after Noah fell asleep, Ethan and I read the letter together. It began, "Dear Noah, if you're old enough to read this someday, it means I've finally accepted something difficult." The letter continued. Victoria apologized directly to Noah. She admitted that her behavior had hurt him. She admitted that she had treated his mother unfairly. And then she wrote, "The greatest mistake of my life was teaching you that love had conditions." I had to stop reading. I couldn't continue. Ethan finished the rest. Victoria explained that she had voluntarily accepted a plea agreement in the forgery case. She also revealed something else. She had enrolled herself in intensive therapy months earlier. The final paragraph read, "I do not expect forgiveness. I only hope that one day, when Noah is older, he knows that his grandmother loved him even when she failed him." For a long time, neither Ethan nor I spoke. Finally, Ethan looked at me. "I don't know what happens now." Neither did I. Trust was still broken. Pain still existed. But for the first time there was honesty, real honesty. Then my phone rang. It was Aunt Jenna, and what she told us left us speechless. Victoria had collapsed earlier that afternoon, and she was asking for only one person, me. I arrived at the hospital 2 hours later, not because I had forgiven Victoria, not because everything was suddenly fixed. I went because I needed closure. Ethan met me in the lobby. He looked exhausted. "The doctors say it wasn't a heart attack," he explained quietly. "She collapsed from severe exhaustion and stress. She's physically stable now." I nodded. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave, but I didn't. When I entered Victoria's room, she looked smaller somehow. Older, fragile. For the first time in 6 years, she didn't look intimidating. She looked tired, very tired. When she saw me, tears immediately filled her eyes. "I didn't think you'd come." I remained standing. "You said you wanted to speak to me." Victoria nodded slowly. Then she said something I never expected to hear. "I've spent years blaming you for things you never did." She wiped her eyes. "I blamed you for my fears, my marriage, my insecurities, everything." I stayed silent. Victoria looked down at her hands. "Watching you leave with Noah destroyed me." She paused, "But not because you took him away." She looked directly at me. "It was because I realized you had every reason to leave." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she quietly said, "I'm sorry, Claire." No excuses, no blame, just an apology, a real one. I thanked her, but I didn't forgive her. Not yet. Healing takes time, and some wounds don't disappear overnight. Before I left, Victoria handed me a sealed envelope. "Please read this when you're ready." I took it. I had no idea that envelope would completely change Noah's future. A week later, after returning to Portugal, I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a copy of Victoria's updated will, along with a letter. The letter explained everything. After beginning therapy, Victoria had reevaluated her entire estate plan. She had sold several investment properties, created a legally protected educational trust solely for Noah, and, most importantly, she had named an independent financial institution as trustee, not herself, not Ethan, not anyone in the family. The trust could only be used for Noah's education, healthcare, or future housing expenses. No one could access it for personal reasons. There was also another surprise. Victoria had established a foundation supporting single mothers pursuing higher education. In her letter, she wrote, "For years, I judged women whose lives I didn't understand. This foundation is my attempt to do something better." I sat quietly for a long time. People often imagine revenge as dramatic, explosive, public. But sometimes the greatest consequence is forcing someone to face themselves. Victoria had finally done that, and it had changed her. Months passed. Slowly, carefully, Ethan and I began attending family counseling sessions online. Nothing happened quickly. Trust had to be rebuilt one conversation at a time. Then, nearly a year after leaving the country, Noah asked a question. "Mommy, can we go home now?" And suddenly, I realized something. Home no longer meant the same thing. 18 months after Noah and I left, we returned permanently, but not to Ethan's parents' town. Ethan had accepted a new job in another state. Together, we bought a small house. A fresh start, with new boundaries, very firm boundaries. Family visits happened only when both Ethan and I agreed. No surprise visits. No criticism in front of Noah. No exceptions. To everyone's surprise, Victoria respected those rules. Therapy had changed her. Not perfectly, but genuinely. Our relationship remained cautious. Some days were easier than others. Forgiveness came slowly, trust even slower. But progress happened. As for Ethan, he never again asked me to apologize simply to keep the peace. In therapy, he finally understood something important. Protecting a marriage sometimes means disappointing other people. Even your parents, especially your parents. Last month, Noah turned 5. At his birthday party, he accidentally spilled juice all over the living room rug. The entire room froze. Old habits die hard. Then Victoria smiled. "It's only a rug," she said. "Let's clean it together." Noah laughed. Everyone relaxed. And in that moment, I realized something. Leaving wasn't the end of our family. It was the only reason we still had one. Because the day I bought those 2 one-way tickets, I didn't destroy my family. I saved it.